And we're back with Angela Reid, Bob Herbert, and Kate and Dawson. And the other big primary drama that's today is right here in New York, where Congressman Charlie Rangel is facing his toughest primary yet, probably since he defeated Adam Clayton Powell to narrowly win the seat in 1970. And I've got to go to my resident New Yorker here, Bob Herbert, on this. So you have Charlie Rangel, who is 84 years old this month.
Yep.
He's been in office since 1970 when he defeated Adam Clayton Powell. And now for the first time, it's close, right? He's up 47-34 over his closest challenger. There are actually three other challengers in the race. But his challenger, Mr. Espaillat, has this thing going for him, which is that he is Hispanic. Now, Charlie Rangel's half Hispanic, too, but that's a whole longer story that he doesn't really identify as Hispanic, but he is half Puerto Rican. But is it even possible that Charlie Rangel is actually in jeopardy? And then let's talk a little bit about what that means in the bigger picture with African-American politicians who really don't typically get much of a challenge.
Well, he is in jeopardy. Now, whether, you know, he may win the race. The latest polls show him up by 13 points. I don't think he's ahead by that much. So he might win it. But he's definitely in jeopardy. He could lose. This was another case of where a district was redrawn. Charlie has historically represented a majority African-American district. Now it's majority Latino, so it's one of the main reasons he's in jeopardy. But another reason he's in jeopardy is just simply the fact that he's been around so long. Barack Obama was 9 years old when Charlie Rangel went to Congress. It was groups like the Carpenters were at the top of the charts when he went to Washington. And I think that in both the Thad Cochran race in Mississippi and the Rangel race here, as different as they may seem, it's a case of voters not happy with the way things are going in this country, and it's a lot of voters saying, let's just throw the rascals out. They don't even understand the issues maybe that well, but they think it's time for a change.
And Angela, I mean, having worked with the CBC for quite a long time as their legal counsel, talk a little bit about this interesting change in some of these districts where the growth is among Latino voters. In the case of Charlie Rangel's district, you also have more white voters because Harlem is gentrifying. Right. How does that impact the way that the CBC operates? Because you do have a lot of legislators who've been in office a long time, but who are now facing demographic change that we typically associate with Republicans.
Sure. Well, I think, first of all, we need to address this concept of seniority, which is the way in which CBC members have been able to attain chairmanships and ranking memberships throughout the history of Congress since they were first elected. Congressman Rangel, who is one of the founders of the Congressional Black Caucus, therefore chaired the Ways and Means Committee. And I think that people, particularly those who may not be as astute about Beltway insider politics, really misunderstand the fact that sometimes change is good, but sometimes it can be tremendously detrimental. That is also true for this Senate race in Mississippi. When you throw out your most senior member of Congress, you put yourself in peril. The district is in peril, the state's politics are in peril, and all of that. That said, Joy, to your point about how do members of Congress, CBC in particular, interface with changing demographics in their district, with redrawing of district lines, I think Congresswoman Maxine Waters, among others, is a great example of how she has built a coalition of Latino and black voters. Mr. Rangel is he's a great example of that as well. Although this race has been billed as a black versus Latino race, that is not what it is at all. Mr. Rangel has tremendous support from Latino constituents. So I hope that people really start looking at the idea of challenging your senior member of Congress.
Well, and then to Angela's point, just to build on that, Caton, it's kind of a high-class problem to have, right? Because Democrats are looking at changing demographics within some of these districts where they are then having to appeal to white voters, appeal to Hispanic voters, because the demographics becoming more fluid, whereas in your party, in the Republican Party, what you're facing is increasingly white districts that have very few Hispanics, and really no opportunity or no requirement, really, for those Republican politicians to start appealing to Latinos. Is that the flip side and a problem for your party?
Well, certainly it's a problem for our party. We've got to get bigger and grow. But let me go back to Charlie Rangel real quick, Joy. I was able to run into him after Melissa's show a couple of weeks ago, and this guy at Retail Politics is the best I've ever seen locally. Not only did I introduce myself, he asked if there was ever anything I needed in his district to call him. and picked up on the accent. So Charlie Rangel's got retail politics to him. He knows his district. He's got Mayor Dinkins with him. He's got the governor of New York that he shook that endorsement loose on Sunday. So Charlie Rangel's going to win and go back to Congress for his last term. That district, you're having a little bit of the same thing there that you're having in Republican primaries. I mean, we're having conversations about who both parties are right now, and I contend Rangel goes back and most likely an upset in Mississippi.
All right, yeah, I think those predictions sound pretty same. He also has a rap song. We didn't get a chance to play it, but Charlie Rangel,
so awesome.
He may be 84, but he's got a hip-hop song. He's got a little hip-hop jammy. All right, thank you very much to Angela Rye, Caton Dawson, and Bob Herbert. Appreciate you guys being here.